We know how to choose integers between two bounds randomly using the randi command. But what if I want to choose 1 or -1 randomly? How could I do that? Can I do randi and then this vector, -1, 1? Nope, I can't, because the problem is this can choose any integer from -1 to 1, so it could be 0. So this doesn't work. How can I do it? Let me show you one possible way. I'm going to make a new function. I'm going to call it rand2. Okay, I call it that because there are two possibilities, either 1 or -1, and I want both to have a 50% likelihood. Here's what I think is the easiest way to do it. So output I'm going to call r. This output is either going to be 1 or -1. And first, let me have a temporary value. Let me call it t, randi2. So what's t? T is either 1 or 2, chosen randomly. And then I think the easiest way to do what we want is to say if t is 1, okay, then I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to set r to be -1. Otherwise, else, or if you want to be really clear, you could do else if t equals 2, then r equals +1. And that's all I have to do. So let's check it out. Rand2, there's a 1, there's a -1, so it seems like it's working. Let's write a little script to test it. So let's test it 100 times. For I equals 1 to 100, let's display rand2. And I'll call this script test rand2. So let's run it. Yep, so there we can see it's 1s and -1s. So there's a fancier way to do it, but a way that isn't very flexible. Let me show that to you. I can actually do this in just one line, but if I was trying to choose between, say, 3, 10, then this wouldn't work. Whereas this way that I did it here, this is much more flexible. So another way I could have done it, I could just say t equals -1 to the randi2. Okay, so it's either going to be -1 to the 1, or it's going to be -1 to the 2. So it's either going to be -1 or 1, and this will also work. Oh, and I called it t, I was supposed to call it r. I noticed that because when I had it called t, it was underlined, and that was telling me, or that was giving me a warning that I had chosen the wrong variable name. So I've saved it. So let's go back and do the test rand2 script again. Yep, looks like it still works. So, like I said, this new way that I have here, it's obviously a lot shorter, but it's not as flexible. It really only works for the case of 1 and -1. Another example I want to do, let me close these. Let me make a new function. I'll call it rand3. And what this is going to be, I want to show an example of how you can choose randomly between 0 and 1, but with some weights for the probabilities. So, as an example, let me call w for the weight. So, for example, if w is 0.3, then I want to choose 0 with probability w, and I want to choose 1 with probability 1 minus w. So choose 0 with probability w, choose 1 with probability 1 minus w. So I chose those, so it's probability 1, it's a 100% chance that I either choose 0 or 1. And so how can I do this? Well, I'm going to have to use some new built-in function in MATLAB that we haven't talked about called rand. And so how does rand work? If I do rand4, it gives me a 4x4 matrix of random numbers from 0 to 1. So if I do rand1, that gives me just a single random number, like a 1x1 matrix from 0 to 1. So let me write x as rand1. So notice that this is rand and not rand I. This is different. Rand I always returns an integer. Rand, it returns a decimal from 0 to 1. And then I can say if x is less than or equal to w, then my output, let's call that output r. So if x is less than or equal to w, then r is going to be 0. Otherwise, so I'll do else instead of else if, r equals 1. Okay, I'll save it as rand3. And let's test it out. Let's test it with something like this, but let's alter it a little bit. So instead of doing save, let me do save as for test rand3. And instead of having it just display the numbers of rand3, let me do it a little differently. Let me make a vector. So I'll start with an empty vector. And then for I equals 1 to 100, instead of displaying rand3, let's put rand3 on the end of the vector. Okay, and then at the end, because this is a script, v is going to be defined in my workspace. So I've saved it. And now let's try test rand3. And I need to tell it a probability here inside of rand3. So let's do, how about 0.78. So I want 78% chance of getting 0, 22% chance of getting 1. So I've saved it. Now let's run this test. And now what does v look like? Okay, I can see it here. And let's count how many of them are zeros. And I'm hoping it's about 78 of them are zeros. So how can I do that? Well, I can do v, which of them are zeros? Okay, this is going to be a true-false vector with a 1 everywhere it's 0, and with a 0 everywhere it's not 0. And if I want to count how many zeros there are, then I can do this sum. So I'm hoping this number is about 78 because I chose 78% probability. So let's test it out. 82, that sounds pretty good, so I can tell that the function I wrote and the script that I wrote are working correctly.